Okay.
Mm.
So you remember in the Spring IOC, we have created a Maven project, and remember why Maven? Maven is one of the building tool, project building tool, where you have one file called pom.xml file, stands for project object model. Project object model, that is a pom.xml file where you are saying that what is the project versions, group ID, artifact ID, properties, along with the mainly dependencies. Dependency is nothing but the library which you're gonna use inside your project. Maven is having the lots of features where you can do some set of documentation where you are saying that I want jar or var. All these settings you're gonna do in the pom.xml file. And Maven is very widely used in the industry because Maven is having the smart way to handle the dependencies. Think about without Maven project. What you need to do if you're working in a Spring framework, you have to go to the Spring website or you have to figure it out what are the different jars available. It might be that those jars are not available at one place. You have to download it from different places. Like Spring Framework is using one commons logging, which is a part of the, one of these jar. I think it's Spring Core now, but initially it was a commons logging. So these library belongs to the Apache community. So you have to download those jar files. I have been working in Spring from a 2.5 or I think 2x onwards. So initial days, I really struggle to download the jar files and making those jars compatible with my current projects. So these are the very difficult tasks people used to spend good amount of time to set up their infrastructure. And Maven come up with a good idea. They're saying that, hey, you just give me the dependencies name, you give me the artifact and group ID along with the versions. I will be downloading this completely from the online repository. Make sure that when you are running the first time Maven projects, then you need a internet connection because the dependencies which have to be downloaded from the Maven side, it is available only in the online repository. After that, once you are going to download all these things and it is downloaded, it is going to store all the jar files in one of the .m2 folder of your user directory of Windows, where all the downloaded jar files are there. After that, even though you don't have internet connection, it is completely fine. Your project and development can go smoothly. Yeah. So now this day, every people are using Maven. Some of the industries is using the Gradle also, which is also one of the building project tool. But yeah, mostly used one is the Maven. Okay. So this is the Maven where if you are talking about the Spring framework, then these two dependencies definitely you must have. One is the Spring context and another one is the Spring core. So these libraries are providing with the all basic infra setups for your application. So if you look at my manager class, I'm using the application class path XML application context. So these libraries are coming from the Spring framework side. So yes, you need to have all these things. Remaining, you remember person.java is there. And for that purpose in the configuration.xml, we have created a bean. And that was the major purpose of your Spring IOC. It is saying, do not create your object by using new keyword rather than you just tell me what object you want to create and give me the class name along with the package name. These properties are optional because sometimes you might have some bin where you know these values are not going to be changed. It's hard coded. Talk about the banking system, bank name. Bank name is never going to be changed. So there, if you're creating a bean of your bank, you can keep on using the same bank instance and you can feed the value something like this. But this person class where I'm feeding the ID, first name, last name, age, this is a wrong practice because we don't want to hard code this value. What is my intention? Whenever I'm going to get an empty person object, I have to set the value dynamically. It could be one person is having, not could be, it is definitely one person is not having the same value as the other persons. But yeah, for a understanding, it is the way by which you can feed the value of your properties. So the moment your manager class is going to run, this guy is first loading the configuration.xml file. This config.xml file name can be anything. You can give any meaningful name. But remember, the starting point of your Spring framework is to loading this XML file. The moment this XML file is going to be loaded, the all bean which is defined inside your application is going to be created at the time of loading itself. Okay. Now, this is the something which you found quite interesting, which we didn't talk about in the last class. It is a part of Spring IOC, and I'm keep on telling you this course is especially for Spring Boot and microservices. But I'm just giving you brush ups how Spring IOC is, how Spring MVC is. Then only you will be understanding the Spring Boot in better way. Fine. So every bean which you are defining having the scope associated with that. Doesn't matter you are defining these properties or not, it is already there. And the scope of every bean is a singleton. Singleton is one of the design pattern. But remember, this is not the singleton design pattern. What this scope say is, if you are creating any object inside the Spring container, it is having a scope as a singleton means the single instance of that particular class will be available. Doesn't matter in manager class how many times you are calling this getBean method, but the same person object is going to return to you. And that is the meaning of singleton. So singleton scope is by default. So let's say you have a person class, book class, address class, whatever classes. And all these classes are having the being defined in the same XML file and could be in the another XML file also. Then at the time of loading your config.xml file, all the beans are going to be created by the Spring Framework container, and it is going to also stored into their container. Now, whoever is going to expecting the person object or the particular object, they have to call context.getBean. In this whole process, I am not using the new keyword anywhere. The meaning is this object, which is created by the Spring Framework called P1, it is completely under the control of a Spring Framework. Spring Framework is tracking this object. It is also checking that when this object is not required, it have to be garbage collected or whatever process is associated with each object lifecycle completely going to be handled by the Spring Framework. And this is the reason we are doing this lengthy process. One of the students has asked me a very decent question, Niket. It's just a matter of creating a person with new keyword. For getting the person object itself, you did a long process. You created a Spring project, you have added the dependencies, then you have defined XML, you have feed this all value, and finally in the manager class, you are calling the getBean to get this person object. If we can do directly person equal to new person, that's all. But yes, there's a problem. The moment you are saying new person, it means your project becomes tight coupled. It is completely loose coupled. Why it is loose coupled? Because the person who want to test this functionality, they are least bothering about what is the dependency in that. Dependency is stored in somewhere else, right? The objects are stored in the container. This guy have to just call the main method to run this whole execution. But if you are doing a new keyword, there is a risk. The moment you're creating a new keyword, it might be that those object is having some further dependencies. Like person class is having the dependency on address class, and address class is having the dependency on city class. There's a lots of dependency. So the caller have to make sure that all the dependency is fulfilled. They cannot call blindly to execute their business logic. But since you did this way, it means your application is now completely loose coupled. People are less bothering where this bean is coming from. They are looking for get name, first name, last name, age. It's a Spring Framework responsibility to make this person object available whoever is looking for. And that's the interesting point. So if you run this program, you're going to see that your program is running. In fact, your object is created, your setters method created, and after that, you're calling the all getters method. Now, imagine I have a situation where every time before that, I want to show you one more thing. Let's not call this person class object. Don't call the getBean method. Now try running this. My expectation is since configuration XML file is loading and it is having the singleton scope, it means while loading the XML file, all the bean have to be created. It means I'm expecting these two must be coming. Let's run manager class again. Yes, your object is created and your setters methods are also called. Why? Because objects having singleton scope and scope which is singleton, objects are going to be created at the time of XML file loading itself. There is a 5 scope of a bean. One is singleton, prototype, request, session, and the global session. But another widely used one is the prototype. So let's make it prototype. What does it mean? Prototype is required, and it is saying that whenever you will call getWin method, every time the object is going to be created. And also, now your object will be not created because this is also known as lazy object creation. Do you know what is the meaning of lazy and eager? Lazy execution is whenever you are looking for, the moment you are really in need of that object, then only the object will be created. Singleton is a eager loading, means doesn't matter. One second, guys. Okay, so prototype is a lazy loading, means until or unless the person object is not required, the object will be not created. And singleton is a eager one, means the moment application is started up, it is going to create the object. Let's run the manage class once again and try seeing what is happening. Nothing happening. Can you see that? Nothing happened. There is no object created. It means it is not required now, and that is the reason lazily the object is not created. Now see what I'm doing. I'm calling the getWin method and run now. Yes, now your object is creating, means on demand. When your system is saying, oh, now object have to be given, then the object is going to be created. And also, if I call this method again, it is a person one, run this again, you will be able to see that 2 time object is created. Can you see that? 2 object created. Back to the singleton and try running now manager class again and see what's happening. Only 1 time. Even though you call getWin method 2 times, but object is created only 1 time. Why? Because scope is singleton, and singleton is saying doesn't matter how many times you need this object. Once I have created, I will be making available this object wherever you are looking for. But prototype is a different story. Prototype is the one where every time you will call getWin method, this object of person class is going to be created. Now you must be wondering like where we can use singleton, where we can use prototype, right? So singleton is something which is by default, as I told you. And since it is a single instance, it also makes sense that while loading the application itself, you are going to create the object. Ask me why? It's a performance. Object creation is a costly operation. Whenever you are creating any class object, it is taking some bit of time because this person class object is having ID, first name, last name, age, or it could be that you might be having the many properties associated with that. So when you will create object on demand, then what will be? User will feel a slowness. Let's imagine you are going to online shopping, and when you are doing a add to cart, then for adding to cart, it is taking around 5 seconds time. You will be saying, oh my god, this is slowness, right? Why? Because this guy is creating a cart object, then it is creating a product object, then it is doing the mapping, all these steps, and then finally it is adding into the cart. That is a bad experience to the user. Instead of that, they must have the cart ready, the product ready. So object creation cost is not involved when you are adding into the cart. So they must be having the singleton scope object which is created at the time of starting itself. So many objects which is required, which you are very sure it is definitely going to be required in my program, it is always a good practice to create those objects at the time of application starting. And Spring Boot is smart enough to do that. When I will be coming to the Spring Boot, I will tell you that the beans which is mainly required to deal with your application, Spring Boot is creating those objects at the time of application coming. That's the reason it is known as Spring Boot. It's doing the bootstrap. It is not asking you, hey, create the bean for me. In fact, he's knowing that, right? Similarly here also. So if you're knowing that person object is definitely need for my application, without this we cannot proceed, let it a singleton. And that's what the Spring Framework is doing. It is checking that, okay, the scope is a singleton. It means any I have to create this object. Then why not to take this cost at the time of starting itself, so that when actual use of this person class object is going to be happen, I will be immediately giving it from my container. But whereas if it is a prototype, then on demand, when you call getBean method, then only object will be created. It means the person who has made request to your system, he will feel slight slowness. And think about, if all object is having the prototype, it means they will feel a good amount of slowness. So idea is very simple. It's always your requirement. What is your requirement? And also one more use case. When you are dealing with the multi-threading environment and you have a person class object as a singleton, you know that each thread is working independently. What does it mean? Whenever you have a parallel task, you are going to use a multi-threading concepts. Imagine you have a multi-threaded environment where you have a person class object and that is singleton. Now what will be? Both thread need, let's say two threads are there. Both thread need the person class object. You are using multi-threading, but what will be? One thread is block the person class object, then another thread, what have to do? They have to wait until or unless the first thread is not releasing the person class object. Is that singleton is a good choice here? No, it's not. Here is the prototype. Because whenever thread is asking, hey, I need a person class object, each thread should have their own person class instance, so that they are not blocked for single resource. Both are parallelly working. So they are the another use cases of prototype. Well, but this is rarely, and that is the reason Spring people make singleton scope as a default one. Guys, are you getting the flow? Getting the classes? Please respond.
Yes, Nikhil.
What about you, Hemant?
Yeah, can I get? So there is another process of creating an object, right, with the
Mhm.
annotations.
Right. The concepts
So
are not going to be
uh,
changed. The only syntax are going to be changed. Yeah.
so is there any like difference in creating that object?
Difference in the sense what? It means concept wise or performance wise, or what is your question? Can you explore a bit more?
Like yeah, concept wise and performance wise, like you will. Is there any difference? Like Spring has
Yes,
moved from.
difference is there a bit, because when you are dealing with the XML is need to be parsed, Either you are using the DOM parser, you are using the SAX parser, doesn't matter. But when it is written in the XML is a different set of programming or different set of syntax which need to be parsed. And when parsing is happening, it is quite costly. But when it is annotation based, it is completely Java based. It's a Java class which is having all these things. So your compiler, your JVM is much familiar with the Java code. That is the reason you will be feeling the quite better performance in the annotation rather than XML. And also the maintenance wise, as a Java developer, you really don't need to bother lots of syntax and schema, all these things. These all bins. This is known as a schema. Now no one can remember these schema. If you want to develop a IOC program, there is no chance without the help of a Spring documentation you can write these things. And this schema is telling the reader of this XML file how to read these things. But otherwise, concept wise, the scope and whatever we have discussed, everything is almost same there. So if you talk about something like annotation, let's say, so this is the app config. So there is a at the rate of bean. Similarly, there is a scope at the rate of scope. Can you see that? You can give whatever scope you want. Singleton is by default, loud. Everything is there. Whatever features you are able to see there, same features are here itself also. The only thing is everything in the Java, and there it is everything in the XML.
So here at the rate of bean will create an object for this class.
Right. It is equivalent to defining a bean like this.
Okay.
It is exactly same.
Okay. And how do we access the object name for these kind of classes?
Very simple. Here you are using the class path XML application context, right? And if you want to use the annotation wala, then the class name is going to just change annotation config application context. Remaining everything is here. Getwin is here also. You can see that getwin method here also I'm calling. Here is also a context. The only this library is going to be changed. There is a XML, here is an annotation.
Okay.
Any more question?
No.
Okay, so with that, there's a lots to learn more. I think Raju has registered for Spring IOC also. So he will be learning. If I'm gonna take a class, then all these concepts is going to be discussed under that with one small projects of IOC. But you have registered for Spring Boot, so these things are given you the brush up. If you feel that you are quite lacking in the Spring IOC, then my sincere advice is there. Either you register for this course or either you study it by yourself. It's up to you. Yeah, but yes, trust me, Spring IOC is very, very important and you need to know this. Well, let's move ahead. The next module which I need to discuss with you guys is MVC. A Spring MVC is giving you the another flavor before jumping into the Spring Boot. And we are going to talk about a Spring MVC infrastructure and their advantages, disadvantages, and one sample application, how Spring MVC were working initially in the industry. In fact, many industries are still using the Spring MVC because they have developed their application in a Spring MVC. But whatever latest project is going to be developed from scratch, that all are having the Spring Boot architecture. Okay, with that, again, I can see the timer has started for 40 minutes. So please join if you are disconnected. Fine. I was always talking about that infra. What is this infra? Infra is nothing but you just started it up, and to make the environment or system supporting your expected work, that's called infra. It could be related to your building construction, it could be related to your company opening, or it could be related to your software development starting. Everything is needed infra. So what is the infra for developing a software? If you are a Java developer, then first install the JDK, then set the environment variable, then set up IDE, then run a hello world programming. Lots of things are there. If it is related to real-time projects, then lots of basic authentication, authorization systems, database configurations, all these things is a part of infra. Similarly, in Spring MVC, the infra setup is one of the biggest problem. Sometimes people used to spend a good amount of time to set up their infra only, and these infrastructure is causing a lots of issue for the developer. You need to debug it, you need to take another person help. Now, before jumping into that, let me talk what is Spring MVC and why we need it. So just now we have seen Spring IOC. This is the core module. Core module in the sense, the person who is using the desktop application. application is of mainly two types: desktop application. What this desktop application is basically an application which is not actually using the intranet. The application for running purpose, you don't need an internet or browser. That's called desktop application. Another one is a web application. So web application is the requirement of everybody is now this day. This desktop application is completely gone. But if you still see the billing softwares, if you go to the mall and these guys are scanning your product and making the bill available for you. So if you watch their monitor, that is one of the desktop application. So the scope of desktop application is not required when every person need the web application. The every person's business is globally, so they want to monitor and maintain a system centralized way. That is the reason desktop application is now gone. To develop a desktop application in Java, people were using the applet and swings. There is a two core Java concept called applet and swings. So these two concepts gone completely. People are not even entertaining those guys who is having a work experience, or they're saying, hey, I'm a swings developer. People are saying, I'm sorry, I don't want you. Web application is the demand of every industry. So now the beauty of Spring IOC is even though you're using desktop or web, doesn't matter. You can use IOC in any kinds of application because it is completely related to your core Java. It is a core Java kinds of application. But when you talk about MVC, Spring MVC, this Spring MVC have to be especially for web application development. So you cannot imagine Spring MVC without developing a web application. When you think about a Spring MVC, it means you are developing a web application. So in initial days, people are developing a web application with the help of Servlet and JSP. And trust me, these guys were fulfilling the request for every industry who is expecting the web application. But as we know, industries is growing, technologies are improving. Again, Servlet and JSP is something which is kind of deprecated from the market. Nobody is developing their web application. Web stands for internet. An application which is running on internet or browser, that's called web application, right? So these web application is having the mainly two component. What are those? Server and client and server. Client who is making a request and server who is processing the request and giving the response back to you. So client making a request and servers giving the response. So now Spring MVC has worked as a wrapper on these two concepts, Servlet and JSP, along with some security mechanism which is coming by default with the Spring MVC called front end controller or dispatcher servlet. MVC stands for modal view controller. What MVC stands for? M stands for modal, which is nothing but your data, then view. This is nothing but your JSP, or it could be a HTML, it could be a PDF, it could be an Excel sheet. View is where you are rendering your data, you are asking the users to give some input to you. And controller. Controller is something which is nothing but it is your servlet who is actually doing the business logic execution for your given request. Now, if it is a MVC, you will be expecting this three component always coming with you. Remember, IOC is also one of the design pattern and MVC is also one of the design pattern. Now, MVC architecture have to be very clear with everyone because even though you are learning the Spring Boot, the Spring MVC architecture is important. The reason I'm saying you is that a Spring Boot is a wrapper again on the top of a Spring MVC. Well, now, so when you are doing with the Spring MVC execution, what you need to do, you have to create a Maven web application. And what is this Maven web application? If you look at the normal core Java application, it is just having the main Java test. But if it is a web application, you also have one folder called web app folder. And under this web app folder, you have one of the folder called web-inf. And then after you have a leave, you have a web.xml, all these things. Web.xml, you cannot imagine a web application without web.xml file. But again, Spring Boot make this life easier. You can imagine the application without web.xml file, which you have to maintain. Internally it is there, but yes, without this also, you can set up your infra. Okay, so now see what is the Spring MVC flow. First of all, after creating a Maven web application, you have to add the additional libraries related to Spring MVC. You remember a Spring Core, you remember a Spring Context. These two are mandatory one. Doesn't matter which kind of a Spring project you are making. Core and Context is mandatory one. Then you have a web and web MVC. These two dependency you have to additionally add in your form.xml file when you are dealing with the Spring MVC. Now, after adding these two dependencies, the first infra setup of your Spring MVC started from your web.xml file. You are developing a small hello world program of Spring MVC, or you are developing a big application on the Spring MVC. There is one servlet, which is a gatekeeper, I can say, which is a watchman of your application called dispatcher servlet. You have to register the dispatcher servlet into your web.xml file. So here I have registered the dispatcher servlet and URL pattern is /. If you guys are confused what is URL pattern, what is this servlet mapping, what is servlet, then I will highly recommend you have to do some sort of brush up on simple web application developed in servlet and JSP, because these all are coming from there itself. Okay, there is nothing fancy here which Spring MVC is doing. Ideally, I'm registering one servlet into this web.xml. Even though you're not following all these things, completely fine, because I'm pretty sure as a Spring Boot developer, you don't need to do this now, and going forward also not required. The only problem you will face if you have some application or you are working in some of the system or some of the projects required these setups or these infra setups basically. But if you found any company where you are dealing with the legacy application, then maybe you need to know how the flow is going of Spring MVC. Yeah. The reason I'm saying is that I found many Spring Boot developer, they are doing good coding, but when there is a debugging problem, when there is a infra setup problem, then these guys are really struggling a lot. And reason is lack knowledge of Spring MVC. So, and I don't want you guys to face this problem. At least you should have the idea from where the story started of Spring Boot. What are the things behind the scene of Spring Boot where things are happening and flows are happening. That is the reason I'm discussing about these all things. Well, so each Spring MVC application should must have the dispatcher servlet, which is also known as front controller of Spring MVC. And this is pretty simple. You will get a library class. This dispatcher servlet is coming from the Spring library, and you are saying URL pattern /. It means doesn't matter whatever requests are coming to your system. It could be a login, registration, doesn't matter, any request which is going to be entertained by the dispatcher servlet first. Okay, so this dispatcher servlet is the one which is holding the complete handle of your incoming request, and also outgoing responses are also going via dispatcher servlet only. You can also see one called load on a startup. This load on a startup tag is basically saying you might be having the many servlet registered into this pip.xml file. You have a servlet 1, servlet 2, login servlet, registration servlet, card servlet, lots of servlet are there. But what is your intention? You want the first object of your servlet have to be created this. So how can you tell this web server that I want you to create a object of dispatcher servlet, the first one? Well, this is the load on a startup. So if you give load on a startup 1, it means you are informing the web server, which is your Tomcat in our case, or it could be a JBoss, it could be a WebLogic, it could be a different web server. You are just informing, hey, you will be finding many servlet, but whoever is having load on a startup first, please create the object of that servlet first. And that is the meaning of this load on a startup. In our case, yes, dispatcher servlet is the one we want the object have to be created first. In this configuration, if I remove this also, it is fine because we don't have many servlet. The problem comes when you have a many servlet. Well, let's move ahead. After doing this second step, you have to create one more XML file, and that XML file should start with the same name, whatever you have given here, servlet name, hyphen servlet.xml. This is the naming convention. Whatever name you have given here, servlet name, it could be ABC. You can give ABC, but make sure that here also you have to give the ABC. Then you should start your another XML file, which should be abc-servlet.xml. Okay, so in our case, we have given a Spring and we have starting spring-servlet.xml file. Let's see what is happening here. In this application, I'm using the annotation. Again, when Spring came first time, there was no annotation concept. The reason was annotation is introduced in Java 5 and Spring has developed before Java 5. So annotation is something which is a fundamental concept and features of core Java. But now this day, everybody is using annotation and they are coming out from the web, I mean, any XML file. And I told you many times, Spring Boot even is the example where you will not find any XML file evidence other than pom.xml file, which is a part of your Maven project. Now, what this guy is saying? This guy is saying, hey, I'm using the annotation configuration. This tag is saying I'm a annotation configuration. Second tag is saying from where you should start my code. So Spring Framework is having now intelligence internally. He's a genius now to figure it out where is your servlet and which servlet indirectly I can say controller, which controller is having the right URL mapping to serve this particular request. And for that purpose, you are asking your controller, I mean Spring MVC, hey buddy, I will not help you out. Where is my controller sitting? You go and scan my code, figure it out where is the controller. Yes, this is the one by which you are giving. That's all. These two are highly sufficient. We will talk about this view resolver in some time. But after that, what need to be done? You have to create one controller. And here is the hello controller. How to create a controller? Pretty simple. Create one Java class, annotate that class with the @ of controller. Then after every web application is having some URL pattern, the endpoint, you are hitting the hello, and this guy is going to give you the response. Now, response have to be always in the format of modal and view. At least view must be there. That is the reason I am creating one object called modal and view. This guy is asking me, what is your view name? View, remember, it's a JSP file. So I'm giving the JSP file name, which is here, hello.jsp. And then after I'm adding some value also, which could be a part of data. In the real time, these models are going to coming from the database. But right now, it's just a pretty simple hello world programming of Spring MVC. So here is the view that is called hello.jsp, and here is the data. Key and value is welcome to Spring MVC. And finally, I am returning the modal and view. Idea is pretty simple. I will be running this application and I will be hitting the hello URL, and I'm expecting that I am from controller should printed in console, and there should be a hello.jsp which can display the data which I'm sending from controller. Okay, now also you can make use of one file called index.jsp to run this. This is a pretty HTML code where if you click here, then it is hitting the URL hello, and then the controller will respond to you. Without any delay, let me run this application and see what's happening. Run on server, finish. Cool. So I'm having 8080 port responding to hello MVC, and this output is coming from index.jsp. You must be wondering, you have login.jsp also. Why the output is coming from index.jsp? Because I have ran from here. I directly ran from here. Well, if you want to run index.jsp or login.jsp, directly open this file and right click on this and click on run on server. That is completely fine. But when you are running your project from here, then there is some sort of intelligence or some sort of configuration where you are saying which is your home page. As you know that every application is having one home page, and this home page is something you have to display when your application is landing. It is also known as landing page. So index.jsp is my landing page, which I have informed my web application via web.xml. If you have noticed or not, line number 7 to 9, this is called welcome file list. Here you can see welcome file name is a index.jsp. That is the reason I ran from here, and my web server is smart enough to find out which is my landing page. He found index.jsp is there, and that is the reason the first output which you are able to see here, it is coming from index.jsp. Well, now here is a two configuration. Click here, and for login, click here. So you look at this index.jsp code. If you click here, it is going to hit the URL pattern called hello. Okay, so let's click on this one. The moment I click here, I'm able to see welcome Spring MVC. I am from controller, and also the output is coming to you. How this flow is happening, this is important for you to understand. When you hit hello, the first and important thing, the request went to the web.xml file. Web.xml file having the dispatcher servlet, because he's saying doesn't matter hello or abcxyz, whatever you are hitting, I have to the first one which will be checking your request. So this dispatcher servlet is saying, okay, he did some set of scanning on your request, and then he has forwarded this to the spring-servlet.xml. Spring-servlet.xml is saying, okay, hey, I'm using annotation configuration and I can't help you that which controller is for you. It might be that 100 controller in your system. This guy is saying, I will not help you. Where is your request method? Who will going to process your request? The only thing I can help you is that which is the base package given to me. So he's saying you start going to the com.nic.controller package and look at the all controller, which controller is having your request. So it might be that the web server has picked up this login controller. First, it is checking, are you having at the rate of controller? This class is saying, yes, I'm having this at the rate of controller. Then it's saying, do you have any request mapping with hello? This guy is saying, no, I'm sorry. I have login. Then he's saying, okay, fine, thank you. Let me look at another controller. He's coming to this controller. He's saying, hey, do you have at the rate of controller? He's saying, yes, I'm here. Do you have the @ of hello? I mean, you are having the slash hello. He's saying, yes, I have hello. Okay, then please, this is the request to you. Please go and proceed the request. This guy is printing AMP controller. It could be your many business logic. You are having the service layer, you have a DAO layer. You might be having lots of one second, guys. So, okay, so in real time, it could be a complex business logic which you're dealing with, but here it is a pretty simple. I'm just printing AMP from controller. This guy has did that job. He has printed AMP from controller. He has prepared the model and view. He has taken the hello.jsp and he has added this value. Hello.jsp is knowing that how to get the value from the request. There's a two-way. One way is the expression language. If you guys are aware about the JSP expression language, this is one of the way you are going to print your value. Or another way is there, ask the request, hey, give me the attribute of key, and whatever value is coming, you are printing on out.println. That is the reason you are able to see this output when you are clicking on click here, Spring MVC. This is the typical flow. But I would also like to show you the architecture of Spring MVC, which is coming from the documentation. Yes, look at this. This is very, very important. In fact, for your interview point of view also, and for learning point of view also. So whatever we have seen so far in our application, Hello World, look at and try mapping those all things with this diagram. All incoming request is coming to front controller. Yes, this front controller is nothing but your dispatcher servlet. You remember in babe.xml file, here I have the Spring dispatcher servlet here. This is your front controller. Then after all requests are delegating to the particular controller. Yes, that also you have seen. We are saying go and scan and find out which is your controller. Now, controller is the one who is handling a request. He's creating the model. He's also creating the view and again delegating back to the front controller. He's saying, yes, I did it. Since you are the gatekeeper, you are the watchman, I'm sending you this response back to you. This guy is knowing how to get the view, that is your JSP, and how to render the response in this view. And finally, this control return back to the front controller and it is coming to the client who is make the request. So this is the typical flow and fundamental flow of your Spring MVC. And I feel it have to be very, very clear with everyone. Yeah. So this is what happening here also, right? And now we are done with this infra setup. What's next? The next is create your login.jsp file and whatever you want, you can go ahead and play around with that. But before moving ahead, I wanted to show you something which I didn't discuss right now. You remember in Spring Servlet.xml, we have one more configuration. In fact, we are creating the bean of one class called internal resource view resolver. Why it is so? Let's try understanding that. This is your URL pattern and this is index.jsp file. Inside this web app, you have a web-inf and you have index.login.everything here. Means whatever resources are under web app, which is by default accessible by the client. In the sense, anybody can directly access these two files from this URL. You want to see how? Let's see. Login.jsp. Can you see that? I'm in login.jsp page. Imagine now all the JSP file which you have is inside the web app folder. Your success, your all this file, whatever are available for you. Home.jsp, your success.jsp, your user.jsp, your product.jsp, everything is here. And that you have to do, because whenever you are requesting any request, first is going to your BibApp folder only. It is checking, yeah, index.jsp is there, fine. Login.jsp is there, fine. If you find anything which is not there, let's say you given some set of file which is not available, right? Then you're gonna get a very popular error in the Bib application called 404 error. This is the widely seen error in the world of Bib application. So this is clearly saying that the request which you have made, login or ntui.jsp, whatever you have made, I'm not able to see anywhere. And definitely this JSP file is not sitting here. What is sitting here? It is a login.jsp. And if you do so, I will be giving you the response. Now, if you look at this condition from a micro way, then you will see there is a security leak. Where is the security leak? Login.jsp, completely fine. Imagine the practical scenario. You went to the Facebook login. You got a login.jsp or login.html, whatever it is. You given your credential, click on login. After that, you are getting a response from success.jsp. And you are able to see there, okay, this response came from success.jsp. Means your home page, your timeline is came from the success.jsp. What one can do without going to the login.jsp, what he will do, he will directly put the success.jsp here. Imagine this success.jsp is right now for index.jsp. And you know that after login, this guy is bringing the success.jsp. Guys, there's a problem. Now, if you directly put index.jsp, which is, imagine it's a success.jsp, oh my God, you are in the home page. So you have bypassed the login. Think about that. It means if you remember the request state, if you remember this success URL, then you can directly paste it, and without having the credential login, you can get the home page. This is bad, and in fact, it is a very big problem. But you cannot do that anything because everything is in your bib app folder, so that you are able to access it. This is completely under the control of client. So what is Spring MVC is saying? Do not do this. Whatever your home page is there, whatever your landing page is there, just keep those files into the bib app folder. Other than that, whatever files, whatever JSP views you have, put into the wave-inf folder. Any files which is sitting inside the wave-inf is not directly accessible. Can you see that fail.jsp? Let me try this and see what's happening. So if you try accessing fail.jsp, you cannot do this because it is the control of your server. Now, how can I tell my Spring MVC web server that my all files are available now inside wave-inf? There is a JSP folder. Inside JSP folder, you will be able to see every files. Because by default, he will be start looking into directly web app folder. He will be not able to see fail.jsp. He will be complaining you, I'm not able to find out. But what you did, you are saying, no, I kept all files in the JSP folder of wave-inf. And there is the one you can tell. So this bin is only for that purpose. You are saying prefix, hey web server, I have changed the JSP location. Whatever view you are able to see from the controller, please start looking into this location, not go into the bib app folder. Also, there is a suffix. If you don't want to put .jsp every time, you can also put .jsp one time here. So if you have noticed in the hello controller, we are just giving hello. Actually, it should be hello.jsp. but still it has bring the data for you. The reason is, in this configuration, I have told that whatever view is coming, you please add .jsp in that. And that is the reason your Hello controller is able to give you the data back to you. And yes, guys, that is the reason this is the internal resource view resolver. So now if you want to deal with your, I can say login.jsp, run this, you will be able to see the login.jsp. Please give your credential ABC, X, Y, Z. What will be now? Look at the code. What is the URL pattern here? Login. So it is going to the dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet is sending to the Spring hyphen servlet. Spring hyphen servlet is sending to the asking go and start scanning. This guy is saying I'm controller, but I don't have login. He is reaching here. Are you controller? Yes. Are you having login? Yes. Fine. So this guy is taking the username and password. It is printing I am from login controller, creating the model and view object. And here I'm just doing the hard coded authentication. So I'm checking whether username is ABC or not, password is equal to XYZ or not. If it is so, then I'm setting the view success, setting the object username and their username. And if credential not matched, then I'm going to say fail.jsp. So now if you click on ABCXYZ, you will be able to see success.jsp. Welcome ABC. Look at the success.jsp. It is simply doing the welcome, whatever username you are passing. But if you give anything wrong credential, anything wrong, you will be redirecting to the fail.jsp, which is saying, oops, your login is failed. Please try again. And again, what he's doing is giving you the link of login.jsp where you can keep trying with your correct one. So pretty simple login. One second, guys. Yeah, I'm back. Okay, so that's all about the Spring MVC basic flow infra setups. If you guys have any question, please ask me. Hello,
No, I'm good.
Raju.
Yeah, so no doubts, Niket. So it's fine.
Okay, cool. So with that, uh, let's move and talk about a Spring Boot. What is Spring Boot and why we have to think about a Spring Boot? Well, the matter is started from the microservices architecture, right? So Spring Boot. But let's talk about microservices because where the actual picture is coming. What is microservices? Anybody? Do you know what is microservices? Any idea?
No, Niket.
No idea. Okay. Let me start from the very basic and layman term. In the beginning, people were creating a web application. Okay. Let's think you are creating a e-commerce application. So under e-commerce, how many modules are there? You have a user modules for definitely. You have a cart module. You have a product module. You have a search module. You have a payment module. You have a order module. Yeah. You have a history module, etc. There's a many module, trust me. But when people were developing this application in beginning, what they used to do, they started one application like this, which you have seen just now, hello MVC, and under that they keep on adding nick under nick dot order, nick dot cart, nick dot something, different package, considering these are the packages representing one module. But every module was a part of your single application, right? Now, if you look at this user, card, product, search, payment, order, history, there is a many services, many module which is kinds of independent. Think about that. User module, if somebody is trying, just checking that what is the email address he has given, or what is the address he has given, he wanted to update his address. Does it related to product service? No, no play. Not a place, actually it's related. If somebody want to check their order, is this related to payment? No, it's not. Similarly, if somebody want to check the history, is this related? No, it's not. But what is the problem here? Problem is, when you have any problem in any of this module, the whole application is shut down. There is no way, if there is a problem in user, then people can still see their history and payment or product cart, anything. No, you cannot do this because everything is a part of single var or jar, most of the time var only. It is a var file. If some set of configuration related to user is wrong, indirectly you are dependent on that and whole system is shut down, right? So you know that without user also my application should work, but it is not happening because it is a web application holding the all modules together inside a single var deployed in a single Tomcat. And when you do so, this is called monolithic application. What is this? So monolithic. These kinds of application is knowing monolithic application. Now, if somebody is asking you to give a solution of this, what will be your first point? You must be saying that, hey, do one thing. Remove the independent one from this monolithic. I will be running the two web application, that's fine. But remove the independent one from here. And yes, and when you think about this, making your modules as a services independently working, then it's nothing but it is your microservices. So monolithic to microservices. Now, before going to microservices, let's not only talk about the one problem of monolithic application. Think about the many problems. One problem we have noticed that your standalone time, your productive time of your application stand time is always at risk. The company like Amazon, Flipkart, they are having a complete business setup on this e-commerce only. And for a couple of hours, for a couple of days, if their system is down, then think about the scenario. They are in big loss. They want to serve their customer 24 into 7. But if something is wrong, then there is a problem. Problem in the sense you have a lots of modules. Sometimes it is taking huge time. In production, your application is failed. To make it available, it is taking good amount of time. Saying that, yeah, this will be taking, we don't know, you have to debug it, you have to call a meeting. Lots of problems in there, guys. And then you will be finding out, okay, one day it's spent completely to find out where is the problem. You found there's a user model which is causing issue. Now, how to fix that? And when putting the patch, putting the fix, again testing it, again deploying it, again making it available, this is a very lengthy process. This is the second problem. Third problem. Always there's a peak hour, and every application is having some set of capacity associated with that. So we are saying, hey, I'm using this server which can serve 1,000 requests per minute. But when it is a big festival like a Diwali, Great Indian Festival, then suddenly these requests are going to be changed from minute to seconds. And what will be in that time? Your server configurations are not up to that level, and because of that, your system start hanging, and it started giving the unexpected results to your user. Everybody wants to catch that deal, but the problem is the system is not capable. What people used to do in the olden days, they used to add additional resources. They want to scale their system. And when you talk about scaling, it is of two types: horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. Vertical scaling is the one where you are adding the hardware resources to serve the request if it is increased. But adding a hardware is not a straightforward work. The first thing is the cost. What is that? Cost. Purchasing a hardware is new server is not, easy things. You have to spend lots of money. Again, setting up into the existing infrastructure is another challenge. And then what will be after 5 days when your actual sale is gone? Your single server is smart enough and handling the all incoming request. Then what you have to do? Again, remove those server. So for a 5 days, you have spent it 1 crore rupees. Imagine, I'm just giving a number, and you found that the complete profit is not even that. So that's a bad choice, right? So vertical scaling is not working here. Third problem. What is the fourth problem? You are using a Java as a fundamental one. The programming language for your web application of e-commerce is a Java. Let's imagine you started everything doing in the Java. User, card, product, search, payment, order history, everything was started in Java. But suddenly you realize that, oh my God, there is a beautiful library available in the Python, which is making our search module very fast. The same library and same performance we cannot achieve in the Java. What you will do? Do you have any choice? You don't have. Even though you know some set of different technologies helping you to achieve your business logic in much better way, much faster way, improving the performance, but you cannot do this. The reason is you have a Java, and you cannot have an intra programming language across the one web application. You have to use only those language which is running on JVM. You suddenly realize that for certain business logic, we don't need relational database like Oracle, MySQL, all these things. You need a NoSQL database like MongoDB or Cassandra, whatever it is. But no way, you cannot do this. Guys, understanding the problem? These are the problems with the monolithic application. Now, whenever people started realizing this problem, the most important was their business was not uh, impacting because of these problems. And everybody wants the system to be 24 into 7 working, good performance, and better control over there. Now you can relate this problem with many applications. Think about the IRCTC website. Do you know that IRCTC having the huge user base, and they are also having the different modules. Like they have a train module, they have a payment module, they have a user module, they have a booking module, isn't it? Every module is dependent on each other? I don't think so. If somebody wants to check the only availability of their seats, it's not related to the directly payment mode or order or ticket booking, whatever it is. So everywhere there is a necessity of that. And that is the reason people start thinking about microservices. But there was a problem. If you start moving your application as an independent one, but there is a situation where one application have to interact with other application. Yeah, take this scenario. If somebody wants to know that how many orders has been made for this particular user, then yes, user and order module have to interact with each other. How they can make this possible? Solution was already available. That's called web services. Whenever you want to communicate from one application to another application, what is the way? The way is your web services. With the help of web services, you can easily communicate from one application to another application. And when we talk about web services, it is of two types: SOAP and REST. SOAP is stands for Simple Object Application Protocol or Access Protocol, I believe. And REST is a representational state transfer. So these are the two types of web services. Yeah, guys, again, I can see intentions. Okay, well, we were talking about now. We move this all models as a services. When you're saying it is one of the module working independently, then we are saying it is your service, right? Service in the sense who is taking one particular request and doing some set of business logic execution for you. And for interaction point of view also, we have already the REST web services by which one application can communicate with other communication or exchange their data between them. SOAP is not very user friendly and also not widely used one. The reason was it is a protocol. And when you have a protocol, it is a kind of instruction. You have a lots of limitations there. In SOAP based web services, there is one XML file called WSDL file, which stands for Web Services Descriptor Language, which is holding the complete information of your service provider and the service consumer. So, and yeah, to be very frank, the legacy system, whichever we have now this day, those systems only have the SOAP based application now this day. But rest all place we are having the REST web services widely used. In fact, in the world of microservices, REST web services is on peak. Everything is happening with the REST web services. And the moment people start working as a module such as services, you must have heard this term, software as a services, SaaS. Have you heard about this? We are talking now, this is SaaS. It stands for software as a services. So made your software as a services, and think about the scenario, think about the business intention. Now, this guy, under this there is a payment. Do you see many applications is having the payment system integrated with that? And you also know that this payment is might be not their own system. They are using their third party payment services. The Yes Bank payment gateway is widely used one. It is very powerful and very user friendly also. Do you know now? Yes Bank is surviving and earning a lots of money from their payment gateway itself. How it became possible? Think about, Yes Bank has created their payment gateway in such a way that it is a part of their monolithic application. Can they earn money? No, they cannot. They have developed payment module as a separately different modules and deployed separately. Now we have a cloud, right? They have simply deployed their payment gateway on the cloud and they are asking the users, whoever want to use that, please use that. And per request, I will be charging these many dollars. Wow, amazing. So the moment you have a SaaS model available, you are open for your business. You don't need to give a lots of infra setups. In fact, the cloud provider is giving the lots of things. They're also asking you, you just give me a jar file. I will be giving the infra for you. It will be deployed there. I will give you the URL. You just give me the list of subscriber to your payment gateway and I will be keep on charging them. Yes, people want the projects and software to be like this, not working as a heavy module, which is causing a lots of scaling as well. So two problem you have seen that we have a lightweight application now, independent module one. So always there is a very rare chance your application is shut down. Any of the module is working, then you are saying that your application is working fine. You have a choice now to choose whatever technology suits for your particular business cases. There is no restrictions that you can choose only Java, you can choose only Spring Boot, you can choose only Python. There is nothing like that. You are independent to choose the technology which suits for your business needs. Also it is a lightweight. If it is a lightweight, then it is very easy to do a scaling, that is a horizontal scaling. You can easily if you found user module is having the heavy load, it means what you can do, you can immediately replicate the user module and make the another instance available immediately, and there is no manual work available. It's all automatic now this day. Automatically router is there, automatically load balancer is there, who is just checking that okay, these are the requests coming from this side, so let me redirect to this particular instance. When suddenly you found that requests are less, automatically the another instance will be killed and one instance is working for you. So horizontal scaling. And now this day everywhere we have a distributed architecture, right? People are talking about cloud computing, people are talking about distributed architecture. So there these kinds of architecture is really helping you to deploy, replicate your small applications and working independent as a services. That's called software as a services. It's not stopped here. You must have heard about FaaS, which is function as a services. OMG. Imagine you are a smart developer. You have written one method, just a small method. And this particular function is actually an algorithm. And this algorithm is so powerful. Let's say it is a searching algorithm. And you are saying to the e-commerce guys or any companies, you just give me the data set where you have and just tell me what data you are looking for. Within a microseconds, I will give you the results. How huge database it is, I don't care. How you're doing that? It is just a small function. Think about you are not running any company. Think about you are not earning any money, but you just written one function. By that, you are very confident this can help many users, many peoples to get a search result in a fraction of seconds or in a milliseconds. Do you see that people are going to use your application? Yes. And you don't want to give this algorithm to anyone. What you will do, you will purchase a cloud, you will deploy this function as a services, and you are asking the users, hey, whoever wants to get the search result fast, please contact me. I will give you the results. I will be charging you per dollar, per request this many dollars. Wow, amazing. And that's called Lambda. You must have heard about the AWS Lambda and all. This is the where many chatbot applications are going to be developed. So yes, guys, so these are the things people are looking now this day, and you cannot avoid microservices architecture here now. Yes. Now, so you understood what is the necessity for microservices. You understood what was the problem with the monolithic application. Now it's time to understand what are the challenges involved in the microservices. Yes. When you are dealing with the microservices architecture, doesn't matter it is a big application or a small application, you must have to deal with either var or jar. Var stands for web archive and jar stands for Java archive. Now when you have a var, then you must need one of the web server. It could be Tomcat, it could be WebLogic, it could be JBoss, whatever. Then you have to install it. After installation, give some set of environment variable configuration change, whatever it is looking for. Then take another building tool like Maven or Gradle, generate the var and copy that and paste into the web apps folder of your web application. Then after start your Tomcat, and then after your application will be start working for you. If it is a Spring MVC project, do the infra setup. I just now shown you. Doesn't matter it's a Hello World application or a bigger application. The complete setup you have to do like this only. OMG, the problem is not gone still, right? People have to do all these things. People have to do lots of manual work here. But there was another team. Again, one team was keep on watching these problems, and that's not what it's a Spring Boot, guys. It's a Spring Boot. A Spring Boot is knowing that how a Spring microservices architecture have to be. People don't want to do a lots of manual work. They don't want to install the software. They don't want to do a lots of infra setups. And here's the Spring Boot application coming. You will be surprised to know that Spring Boot is having inbuilt Tomcat server. And that is the reason it is also known as a standalone application and production ready application. Do you know what? It means the moment you are saying Maven build, it means you got a var, not only var, you are saying run as a Java application, your application is start running, your Tomcat is start running, your var file is already deployed, you got a link, you got an endpoint, so you start using this. No further additional steps required from development to production. Everything is automatic. And when you need these kinds of things, that's the reason people are looking for a Spring Boot. And this is the requirement of every industry, every projects. That is the reason the use, what I can say, like demand of a Spring Boot developer is huge now this day. We will be talking about all these things. Well, so microservices we have talked, easy deployment, simple scalability, compatible with containers, minimum configuration, lesser production time. All these are advantages. And similarly, if I talk about a Spring Boot, it is one of the open source Java based framework. It is developed by a pivotal team, as you know, it is a Spring guys. And it is easy to create a standalone and production ready Spring application. I told you, right? A standalone in the sense it is not required any further dependency. It is a standalone. And production ready in the sense the moment you are saying my build is success, it means it is ready to serve your request, right? So what are the prerequisites for this? Prerequisites is just you know the Java and the Spring IOC MVC. And I hope Java you guys must be knowing. Spring IOC and MVC, I tried giving you the brush up, imagining you must have worked a bit on that. But still, if you found some concepts you need to brush up or learn, then please go through that. Then only you can go ahead with the Spring Boot and learn it much better way. Okay. So we'll talk about the starter and configuration of the Spring MVC very soon. But I want to start with the command line. A Spring Boot is providing the CLI, command line interface. And this is because of the popularity of Node. The moment Node come up, there is a big revolution happen in the world of software. Every programming language starts supporting the command line interfaces. Then why not a Spring Boot? A Spring Boot is also saying, yes, I have a command line interface for you. But to be very frank, it is there, but I never seen people are using this frequently like Angular. So if you want to create an Angular project, you are just saying ng create application name. But here it is supported, but I have been playing around 14 years in the industry. Currently, I'm playing a role as an architect, but I never feel that command line of Spring Boot is going to help us a lot. But for understanding purpose, it is important for you to understand how it is working. If you guys gone on the Spring website or not, I don't know. But it's good to go there. There was very good animation they have given. I'm looking for that. So their animation was like they were having black and white, and when you bring that, when you bring a spring on that, it is going to be a green color. Some animation they have changed. Anyway, let's ignore it. So for command line, open this link. If you open this link, it is some set of documentations of Spring Boot. It is an installation process. It is talking about what are the Java versions you need, what you have options of Maven, Gradle, all these things. But somewhere you will be finding the zip file which you need to download. So here is the one. Yeah. So the latest version of the Spring Boot is 2.4.3. So let me download this. So if it is a manual installation, it is just 11.2 MB zip file. You just open it. After opening this, I've given the all steps you can follow, and I'm gonna share you the link, Git repository of my Spring Boot. In the Git, you can start following that. But here, so after that, you need to extract it into any of the folder. So I need to do this for each training. So I don't have any special folder. What I will do for you guys, I can easily extract it here only. So this is the Spring Boot. You have something like this. Then what I'm saying is step 3. CLI executes a Groovy file. So internal engine of Spring Boot is using the Groovy. I don't know whether you guys are knowing about Groovy or not. Groovy is one of the programming language, which is again wrapper on Java programming language. So Groovy is having their own advantage. It is also running on JVM. But some of the things, some of the boilerplate code you don't need to write. Means you don't need to write public every time. Every class method is already public. In fact, you don't need to put semicolon because it's a boilerplate code. So code which you are doing just for formalities known as boilerplate code. You don't need to write a return keyword. Why? Because it is again a take care in the Groovy. So if you are interested, you can go through the Groovy tutorial. There must be a good Groovy tutorial. Learn about it because many of the companies using that. Sorry. So this is the Groovy programming language. If you look at about their basic syntax, this is the hello world programming of Can you see that? You don't need to write public. You don't need to put semicolon. You can ignore that also. Yeah, you don't need to write system.out.println. You just write println. So this is completely like a Java, nothing else. But yeah, it is having the lots more advantage to work, especially the data structure side. They have their own good way to deal with. You have a def, this data type, which is an all-rounder kinds of. So you, like JavaScript, you have var there. Here is a def. You can define any variable on this def. It is a dynamic data types. So lots of features are there. If you get time, then please go and have some sort of hands-on on this also. But for this tutorial for Spring Boot, it's not required now. So here we are, Spring Boot. Yeah. So the next step, what I'm saying is create a Groovy files, and that have to this piece of code. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy this, and let me open a notepad file. Control S. I will be saving this inside the bin folder. I can give this file name is something called hello.groovy. Let me save this extension. Save. So this is nothing but hello.groovy. You can change the language of Java itself, because I can't see Groovy has been added into their language. Yeah. So just change it to Java language. That's all. So what I'm doing in this code, instead of controller, I have a REST controller. We'll talk about it in some time. Then request mapping you have seen in the Spring MVC, same we have here. And finally, we have one method called index, which is returning me this value. Welcome to Spring Boot CLI console. So now let me bring it to this bin folder where I have hello.groovy. What my next step is saying is you just need to run your particular file. So let me open the command line from this location, and I'm saying spring run hello.groovy. That's all. This is the command line interface, and I hope if everything is working fine, if you have a Java proper version like Java 8, which is the minimum requirement of Spring Boot, then it will be start downloading the all dependencies which it is looking for, and after that your application will be start running. It will be automatically building it, downloading the dependency, compiling it, resolving that, linking your program, and finally opening the Tomcat server, deploying your jar or var file, and finally it will give you the one endpoints which you can do. Oops, that's the problem. The problem is I might be running somewhere the 8080 port, and you remember? Yes. So port is the issue. Let me rerun this. I'm sorry. Cool. Your Spring Boot application is running. You can see this last message. It started application in these many seconds, and the port is nothing but 8080. So what I can do to check that whether it is responding or not, I can go localhost, put 8080, and what is the URL you remember? Hello, right? Give hello. And let's see whether you are able to get the response or not. So I'm expecting welcome message which I have been given, that should come. Let me check. Maybe I have selected this. It is not allowing this to move. Press enter. That's all. Welcome to Spring Boot CLI console, which is the message coming from your REST controller. And congratulations, you are able to see your first application of Spring Boot. This is one of the web application. It required a Tomcat server, but do you see I have install Tomcat for this? No. Look at this console. It is saying Tomcat initialize with port itna, and then after Tomcat is started on port this one. So this is having a lots of dependencies added, and among them, one of the dependency is Tomcat also. So it is running Tomcat also as a services. Now come to the theoretical part and try understanding what and all Spring Boot did. The complete flow you have seen just for Hello World programming in Spring MVC, you have to do lots of infra setup. You are completely not going to do all these things. You are just focusing on your business logic. The purpose of Spring Boot people is to give the developer chance to only focus into their business logic. They don't want you to think a lot on the infrastructure setup, and also think about lots of things to debug the issue which you are not actually doing that. Setting up a lots of boilerplate code, right? So these are the points of the Spring Framework people. Now, what are the advantage? Easy to understand and develop Spring application. Increase productivity. Definitely, if you are not spending your time on unnecessarily thing, then you are completely focusing on your business logic. And if you're focusing on your business logic, it is directly proportional to your productivity is going to be increased. And that's the reason reduce the development time. Yes, development time is reduced. The reason you are focusing on your goal. What are the goals of Spring Boot? Avoid complex XML configuration in Spring. Yes, trust me. Now this day annotation is there, so our XML looks quite neat and clean. But in the olden days, the XML files are messed up, guys. People have to spend lots of time to understand those. So what Spring people did, Spring Boot people, they're saying, do not include XML itself. To develop a production ready Spring application in an easier way, yes, you are talking about a Spring Boot microservices kinds of architecture. So if something went wrong, do you need to wait for a long time? No. If you are developed done, your production is live. That's all. You fix the issue and your production is again start serving request. That is the reason it is saying production ready. So development done, production ready. To reduce the development time and run the application independently. Definitely, this is the same. Offer an easier way of getting started with the application. Completely fine. Which is what is starter template. Now, how these all things happen? What is the magic behind this? Who is doing all the infra setups, dependencies download, starting Tomcat? Well, it is nothing but your starter template. Spring is providing you the starter template kinds of plugins, which is doing the completely basic setup for your application. Like if you want to create a Spring MVC, what you have to do? You have to do a lots of traditional setup, dispatcher servlet registration, creating one XML file. Then you have to give the uh, their add context. What I can say, uh, context scanning, all these things. But these all things are not going to be here. It is completely free. Also, one more problem is there with the other application of a Spring Framework version. If you have noticed in a Spring MVC, each guys, I would like to tell you that this session is going to be finished in 10 minutes. Okay. Before that, I would like to give you my Git. Raju might be having already. Yeah, Raju.
Yeah, Niket. I have downloaded.
Okay. Yeah. So Hemant, can you copy this and bookmark? So the documentation which I was just following, it is there in the last. You can see Spring Boot docs. So please refer that. And if you want to have some set of hands-on, don't definitely you have to do this Spring Boot command line part. You have to finish it before we meet on next Saturday, next weekend. I want you to at least have a Hello World programming running. If not, then if you face any problem, then first we will try to make it run in your system. Then I will be moving ahead. But practice it. Without practice, you cannot be a perfect. So this gonna be our today last session. So after this call disconnection, we will be meeting on the next Saturday. Yeah. Any doubt? Any
Okay.
question?
So you're using Spring Tool Suite or Eclipse for?
I'm directly using Eclipse. I can't see any better most advantage in Spring Boot. I mean, ID Spring S. You must be talking about Spring ST, right? STS.
Yeah.
STS.
Yes. Spring Tool.
Yeah. So I feel that it's taking lots of more memory and the performance, but I don't like that. So Eclipse I'm using, and I'm pretty happy with that. If you are interested to use that STS, you are free to use. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Any more question?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Here. So template, a starter template is doing lots of magic for you. So I was talking about the version. What is the problem with the version? Come to this Spring MVC. So you must have noticed there's a version. For each dependency, we are maintaining one version. But in a Spring Boot world, you don't need to do this. You don't need to provide a version. Why we don't need to give version? Think about the scenario. You are using some Apache common logins. The version of that is not compatible with the Spring 4.3.1. What you have to do, you have to go and search a lot, figure it out. What is the right compatible version with this Spring core? What are the different libraries you are using? Which is the right version for your current core Spring? So ideally, you will be end up messing up things, and you will be spending a lot of time to make the whole system working again. If somebody is asking you to what I can say, upgrade the Spring version. Upgradation is very difficult because you might be having a lots of library which is not compatible with the latest version of the Spring. And here is the Spring Boot people saying. Spring Boot people saying that do not bother about the version. Let me take care of these all things. Yeah. So you just give me the root version. What is your Spring Boot parent version? And after that, whatever dependency you are giving to me, don't give me version. I will be handling it. I will be figuring out what is the right version for me. Are you getting my point? So this is very, very important point, guys. So you are going to be a version conflict issue. Always you are going to face. There is no chance of version conflicts, which ultimately results in more runtime exception. Okay. So Spring Boot, and you got this point. So version conflict issue is not coming most of the time in the compile time. You are thinking everything is working fine, and then it's running, you will be start facing a problem. So version conflict issue is not happening in the world of Spring Boot. Well, so you must have this Spring Boot starter parent with you, which is holding the lots of dependencies, which I'm gonna show you in the next class. What are the dependencies Spring Boot is starting at the time of starting our applications? How does it Spring work? Well, so one annotation is the master and entry point of your application. That's called at the rate of Spring Boot application. Initially, you might have to have two annotation. Enable auto configuration means when you see, when you inform Spring Boot application, hey, I want you to set up my configuration automatically, then only he will do. But now this is at the rate of Spring Boot application itself is having this annotation also included. You don't need to give now at the rate of enable auto configuration. Why? Because it is included in the latest version of Spring Boot with @Spring Boot application itself. For example, database. Do you know what Spring Boot do? When he found there is a jar related to particular database, then he will automatically connect it from the database. You don't need to do lots of bean creation, writing a linking code, all these stuffs. It is going to read your class path and it is found, okay, there is a database library is added. Let me configure it automatically. Wow, amazing. It's really, really beautiful features. Trust me, guys. So no boilerplate code. Production time is definitely going to be increased. Productivity is going to be increased. Development time is going to reduce. It is completely lots of things it is doing for you. Now, it is also having @component scan. And again, I will tell you, it is also a part of now Spring Boot application. So you don't need to actually give this. Now, so what are the key components of this? Spring Boot starter, which is automatically going to download the all required and highly required dependencies. A Spring Boot auto configurator. Yes, this is the plugin or components I can say, which is helping you to set up your infra by default automatically. A Spring Boot CLI just now we have seen, which is providing you the way to run your program by command line. And a Spring Boot actuator. This is one of the interesting components. We will be talking about it in root Spring Boot application. Okay, so with that, I'm thinking it's time to say bye for